everyone, welcome back. Welcome to another episode of Koffee Talks with myself, Dan, aka DJ Gigabyte, and David Persin, aka David Pokey Persin, D Persin 1, Uncle Dave, whatever it is you want to call him. So last week we hit double digits. Last week was episode 10, and we totally didn't even address that. So welcome to episode 11.
Dan, that's it. That's the welcome. I was going to just sit there for the rest of the show. I thought we were celebrating. I don't say anything. I pretty much just shut it down. Dan, at episode 11, it's great. You didn't even ask me how my week went. I'm so excited. Dan, I thought it would start out today. No, I just want to tell people what they're in for today. Okay?
All right.
What are they in for today? Dan, I don't have any idea. A little bit of fun, a little bit of nonsense, a little bit of Pokemon talk, some Poke characters, some Poke gossip. I haven't even thought about it. I got out of bed. I put a computer up. I put a big card behind me, and I said, let's do this thing. We got to do this thing. So, Dan, it's time we do this thing.
Cool. Well, I want to talk a little bit about my week, just very quickly before we jump into the comments. 2 Pokemon-related things happened this week. Smaller one was I went to GameStop this morning. I got the new promo card, which I'll put a picture of on screen, the new GameStop promo.
Tinkaton, right?
Tinkaton. Yes, you got something right about Pokemon.
I know. I was excited about the promo. I've been looking forward to it.
So. Only took 11 episodes. And I will soon be trying to contact people in Australia because I think this one's going to get an EB Games one as well, but we'll see on that. And the other thing that happened was we booked our trip to Japan for Worlds. It was very, very hairy at one point because it looked like maybe we weren't going to get on the same flight. Because with Laura getting the paid trip from Pokemon, she has to book hers through the Pokemon company or through a company that they use. So we just had to sit with both of our laptops next to each other, and she was on the Pokemon's middleman's company one, and I was on like Skyscanner or Priceline or something. And I picked my one, I put it through, and then she was like, okay, I'm going to accept it on mine. And then hers came up saying, we cannot approve this flight. It's over budget. So at that point, I'd already booked my non-refundable flight, so she had to very quickly call someone. Luckily, the person who actually approves stuff at Pokemon is an actual personal friend. She doesn't just know him through Pokemon, so she was able to call him directly. He was able to do the fix, say, oh, here's how you get it to go through even with the warning, and then I'll approve it when it lands in my inbox. So we are, thankfully, on the same flight to and from Japan. And we're going to Japan for, I think, 13 days total. We're going to do a couple of days at Disneyland, like 5-ish days at Worlds, and a couple more days of touristy stuff.
We'll expect some live streaming from Disneyland, Dan. The whole world just can't be about Pokemon, okay?
I cannot promise live streaming. I can promise filming and then putting videos up. I can't promise live streaming because
all right.
I do not want that phone bill if I am live streaming data from Tokyo Disney.
God, you're such a practical guy when it comes to your financial situation. I really appreciate that as a financial advisor.
For everything other than Pokemon.
Yes.
Everything that's not trading cards, I'm very good with my finances.
Makes sense. Well, speaking of finances, Dan, you got the Tinkaton promo. My understanding is you had to spend $15 at GameStop. Was that the case? Can you tell us what you bought?
Well, we asked what we had to buy, and they just said a Pokemon box. They didn't really know. They didn't give us a price limit, so we each just bought one of the bundles of 6 packs of Paldian Evolved. I think they came out they were about $30 each, but we got 12 packs of Paldian. I haven't opened them yet.
Okay.
The weird thing was they had the build and battle stadiums, that come with the 2 pre-release kits and 4 extra packs. Because originally we thought we were going to have to buy pre-release kits before we saw the bundles, and those were like $70. And I said, okay, if we buy one of those, can we just get 2 promos? And they were like, no, it's 1 promo per item. And it was like, all right, well, if we can't have 2 promos for the $70 item, I guess we'll get 2 of the $30 item and we'll spend $10 less.
Yeah, this is today's world. You've just described it completely accurately. So, yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
It so depends on
which model.
It so depends on which GameStop you're in.
I know.
With some of these promos in the past, I've had one GameStop where we went in together and we said, can we both buy something for the card? And they were like, oh, it's 1 per person. And we're like, yeah, there's 2 of us. We want 1 each. He's like, well, it's 1 per transaction. And we were like, okay, we can do a separate transaction. He's like, well, do you have separate cards? I was like, yeah, fine. I can use my credit card and she can use hers. And then the guy goes, well, it really should be one per household. I was like, what is the problem here? You have dozens of them. It's not like I'm going and asking for 50. There's 2 of us here. And then flip side, another time I've gone into a different GameStop, said, what do I need to buy for the promos? And the guy said, whatever you want, Pokemon. Buy a booster pack each and you can have a promo each. It is...
Exactly.
There's no consistency to these things.
No.
All right, well, that is enough talk about what I've been doing. So should we get on to the comments?
I think so.
Good. First comment comes from Alolan Tales. That is a guy I know called Des. He lives fairly local to me, and me and him are going to be collaborating on some videos pretty soon. We've actually already filmed one, and then we're waiting to try and get another one filmed because we really only see each other at like card shows and stuff where we're both working and both really busy. But go click on his channel and drop a subscription to him, and you'll see me on there at some point in the future. And he said, I think you forgot to change the title. Because anyone who saw last week's episode within the first couple of minutes of me putting it up will have seen that I uploaded it with the very, very nice title, EP10 Final, which was not very descriptive at all. But Des came in pretty much within a couple of minutes. I saw that comment, and I was able to correct that. So thank you for that one, Des. Next up, we have Shadowless Jack, who very kindly, we spoke about last week, stepped in to help you out with something on your YouTube. He says, woohoo, I've been waiting all week for this. Side note, thanks very much for the kind words, gentlemen. All fixed up now. Gotta look out for Uncle Dave. Yes, very glad that that was all able to be fixed. And I'm glad that it doesn't seem to have reappeared or had the same recurring issue again. We'll not go into too much detail on what it was.
And you know what's so nice is it's the first person you spoke of, Alola Ninetales, or I think that's what you said. Did you say that, Dan?
Alolan Tales.
Okay, so Des.
Yeah.
And then and Shadowless Jack, he again, after our last episode, reached out and said, look, I feel so bad about you not getting those Pokemon Center ETBs. You know, maybe I'll be able to figure out a trade with you in the future so you can kind of keep collecting those, a case of each of those as you wanted to.
Yeah.
As I expressed my disappointment last time, over not being able to get them. So just a kind guy. Love the people that are watching out for us and helping us grow. We really appreciate you guys a lot.
We have a really nice fan base, it looks like. I mean,
they're very, very small, but you know, it's quality over quantity. Quality, yeah. Okay? Because you know why, Dan? We're not married to several wives, right? And that's okay. For you anyways, not so much for me. But Dan, the thing is, it's quality over quantity, right? Yeah. I mean, okay, fine. I think I made my point. Stop pushing me. I said what I wanted to say.
The point has been made. I also, I felt my ego try almost explode there when I referred to them as our fan base, as opposed to just the people who watch these.
All right, good. I'm going to cut in now. I can't read the darn thing, all right? I can't because I don't want to read the whole thing, but since you opened the door, okay? You're on the stand, and you were the one that opened your mouth, and so now it's a slippery slope, and the attorney's going to just rip you apart. So, guys, here's what happened. Sometimes I like to screw around with Dan. I can't help it. He's young and he's just, he's like my straight guy to all the baloney I throw at you guys. So this week I sent him a message and I go, you can't expect me to keep doing this podcast with you, right? Because nobody watches it. So he's like, what do you mean nobody watches it? I'm paraphrasing now. He says, people watch it and it helps me. It's all good. And I said, Dan, come on. It may be good for you, but it's not good for me. I'm a big celebrity. This isn't good enough for me. So Dan says, so I said, how do you respond to that? I said, there's not enough views. He goes, so I said, how do you respond to that? And Dan goes, well, get us more views. I said, no, that's not right. So he said, okay, how about if we try to get me more views? I said, no, that's not right. And then he says, well, how about if we get like more views altogether? We just get it to grow. I said, no, that's not right. Dan, what you should have said to me is, big celebrity, my ass. Because, Dan, you should have just put me right in my place. And that's what I was trying to get him to do, because sometimes Dan is not willing to put his foot out there and kick someone where it counts, because it's important to make his point. And I wanted him to say, David, stick your ego where the sun don't shine. You aren't no big celebrity. You're just a guy, an old guy, a decrepit old guy, a guy who needs a cane to walk across the street guy. And that was it. And that's our story, Dan. So, yeah, so when you talk about our fan base, What fan base? That's a great thing to stroke your ego with. Yeah.
Just to give that from my perspective,
Of course.
so I filmed quite a lot of videos recently because I was opening a lot of Paldian Evolved, and I really wanted to get ahead in videos filmed. So I actually have it now where I have like 8 or 10 videos filmed, and I'm just editing them, putting them up, and it lets me have more time to sort my cards because I don't need to set up the filming area. And one of the last videos I filmed was I opened my second case of Paldian Evolved. But for that one, I thought I've already done 6 individual box videos. No one wants to watch another 6. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to film a full video of the case, but I'm just going to show off the hits. I'm going to open them all on camera, but I'm going to cut the video together so it just shows off the hits. I then go into that one, bit of technical behind the scenes nonsense that most people won't care about. Because of the way my stuff saves, the audio is delayed by about 0.3 seconds. So if I was a lot better at editing and more confident in myself, I would just move that along the clip as I'm editing. But what I like to do is I like to go and just fix the audio and then give myself a fresh file with the fixed audio. I go into that one and the audio is almost completely gone. For some reason, my microphone didn't work. I'm in the middle of trying to figure this out. This is an hour-and-a-half video. I'm trying to figure out what's gone wrong, and then just suddenly my phone starts pinging with just David's nonsense once again. And I'm just trying to respond to it. It's like, I know that he's not serious about ending this podcast, but I don't know what joke he's trying to make here, and I don't have time for this. Luckily, I managed to somewhat salvage that footage, and I think it's gonna be okay.
You deserve my sincere apology, Dan. I'm not going to give it to you, but you deserve it. Okay.
Yeah.
All
Next
right,
time,
sure.
what you can do is if you can just type up the entire conversation you want us to have with like David and then Dan, and then I'll just like sign it off at the bottom once you've sent me the whole thing, and we'll go from there.
All right. That seems like a great pragmatic idea. Nice job. Okay.
All right. Next comment is from Hacksax. I will say again, I mentioned this last week. YouTube is showing up the @. If you want a different username or something read out, put that name actually in the comment, as a few other people have done. But if you're fine being Hacksax, fine. Hacksax says, has anyone found a copy of the Professor Elm winner promo from the Best of set? No, they haven't, because that card does not exist. The Best of set, which is the 9 cards, the Professor Elm does not have a winner version, and then the Rockets Hitmonchan and Rockets Mewtwo do not have non-winner versions. The Rockets Hitmonchan and Mewtwo were intended to have non-winner versions, but it was right at the end of the Wizards of the Coast losing the license, etc., and they didn't have time to run the tournaments that would have given out the non-winner versions. The winner versions somehow went out through something else, but there are no non-winner versions of those, and there is no winner version of Professor Elm because it was given out through a different method that I don't remember off the top of my head.
Make sure that Laura's doing her job this week. I want to see photos of all those cards on the screen when you do this small little segment here, okay?
Yeah, we're going to have loads of photos on screen. I'll make sure she's working hard.
Yeah, I don't want her to ease off at this point. We've got too much momentum behind us.
Yeah. Lamar is back. Uncle Dave is going to find out soon, if he keeps this up, that I work night shift and sometimes don't think before messaging people in the middle of the morning. Such is the life of a celebrity, Uncle Dave.
Yeah, there's that word. My mother would go, peg. Yeah, no, there's no. Okay. Uh-huh.
Celebrity.
Yes.
He said, Obsidian evolves all the way, which was some nonsense from your Trainer Decade game last week. He said, I got my uncommon and common fossil 99 to 2000 set from you, David. Now need to work on the non-holo rares. I think, as you mentioned last week, you do have some extras of the non-holo rares as well. So I'm sure Lamar, when he is ready to be purchasing those, can get in touch and see what you have. Also said he loved the true or false at the end this week. Says, I've actually had my car catch on fire while driving through the mountains of West Virginia and stood there watching it burn down to just the frame. Crazy experience I will never forget. Yeah, I can imagine that. And as someone who has had a pretty serious car accident in the mountains of West Virginia, that is no joke for where to be stranded. Because you will have no phone signal. It's miles to the nearest anything. And the road could just be empty for a long time. There might just be no other cars for hours at a time.
Sounds like a scary horror movie, Dan. I'm looking forward to seeing it come to the big screen.
Yeah. Well, my story in West Virginia was I hit a deer, and luckily I was able to drive my car away from the scene of the crash. We got it back home, and I'm still solid by this. I'm having a bit of a rant now. This is going to be a Dan rant. This isn't even going to be related to cards at all. So we had a very nice 2007 Prius. It was one I bought off my boss, and they hadn't put a... They'd used it quite a bit, but it was in very, very good condition for a car that old. It could have easily gone at least another 5 or 10 years. So we hit this deer. I drive it back home, drive it back to Ohio. We get it in to be looked at. Really, and I know I'm no mechanic, but I've worked at garages, and I kind of know what's going on with cars. It needed the bumper banged out, it needed the bumper flattened out, the bonnet flattened out, and it needed a new bumper put on it. That was basically it. That was all it needed. It didn't need to be written off. The people at the garage kept saying to me, no, well, there might be damage to the radiator. We can't know for certain that there is no damage to the radiator. To which I responded, I drove that thing from West Virginia to Columbus, Ohio. I drove that thing 400 miles after the accident. If there was the tiniest thing wrong with the radiator on that car, I would know about it by now. A car with any damage to the radiator is not going another 400 miles. But they wrote the car off, and now we have a 2017 Prius that is better, but is not paid off like the other one was.
Well, the only two comments I'll say is, one, you said 2007 Prius, I think, which to me, nice, pretty nice car. I don't know, Dan, but certainly seems like it's functional. It can go all that after a big accident with a deer. And then the other thing, Dan, I have no idea because I forgot exactly what I was going to say. But Dan, I think that at this point, just be careful, please. Slow down when you're driving. Deer are people too. But I'm glad you got home safe and sound so we could actually start a podcast at one point and you're still alive.
Yeah. I mean, when I did hit that deer, there was plenty of time for me to swerve out the way of it, but it was, if I swerved to the right, there wasn't enough time for me to check my blind spot and then swerve. So it was, if I swerved to the right, I might just pull in front of an oncoming car and then we're dead. If I go left, we're rolling down a ditch. So it just became the best option here is to slam the brake down as hard as I can and just slow as much as I can before we hit this thing. It was the safest option in the end.
All right, Dan. Now that reminds me of what I was going to say, which was
Okay.
Go back to a previous podcast or two. Dan will tell you what it is, but you can see our entire discussion of capitalism and its importance in society, and why, no matter, even if the radiator is still functional, you want to act like it's not, okay? Which then leads me to think about you being on fire, or Lamar being on fire, or was it Lamar that was on fire in the woods
Lamar's
of West
car was
Virginia?
on fire. Well, Lamar's car was on fire. I don't think Lamar was on fire.
Okay, so, and obviously, Dan, your hair looks like a bunch of it was burned off. Did you get a haircut or something this week at all?
I did. Me and Laura both
really
went
good. It looks really good, Dan. I just wanted to say that the fire, before I forgot, the fire made me think about somebody actually trimming that stuff down. So it's a nice combination now.
We both had a haircut. I had my roots done, and Laura actually has matching hair to me now. She normally goes some wacky color, but she just got the platinum on. They didn't have time to put other color in, but she really suits it as well. I'll put a picture up on screen of me and Laura together with our new hair.
Okay, that's nice. I always like to glance at the pictures of Laura when you don't know. Go ahead, Dan.
Very weird comment, Dave. Right, anyway, we're halfway through the comments and we're 20 minutes in. All right. Craig says, the Misprints group also gets me triggered. That was to do with your rant last week. I don't even know if the Misprints group really gets you triggered. I don't know if you even know what your rants are about.
Not a thing, Dan. I have no idea. That's the whole funny part of it, Dan, because really they don't trigger me at all. And if they do, they trigger me as much one way as they do the other.
Yeah. It's the full Michael Scott from The Office thing of sometimes I just start talking and I don't know where it's going. You just manage it for 3 full minutes. He says, so many people on there desperate to claim they have a misprint, showing the slightest speck of an alignment dot or the smallest smudge of ink on a card. Like, I totally get that those type of things really aren't for me either. We've talked about they aren't really for you, but if people want to collect those, there are people who have who want those, and there are people who will pay more for those than they would for a card, without the smudge, without the alignment dot. So it's whatever. There are so many different ways to collect Pokemon. There's a lot of different things to do. If that's what people want to do, then that's what people want to do.
And we're behind that. I'm behind that too, Dan.
Yeah,
I just
totally.
want to say that if misprints are a barometer of value, Dan, my body is worth a crap ton. Okay, just my skin tags alone. Basically, that's all I'm saying, Dan. I mean, you can auction me off for multi-millions just based on misprints. All right.
Yeah, well, when I go, I think I am signed up as an organ donor, so we'll make sure someone in the misprints group gets my left lung, because that's not going to help anyone. So we can get some misprints.
Yes,
it's missing a bit.
You can't 3D reprint your left lung, Dan.
Yeah, we can say, hey, misprint group, one left lung, bit missing and full of staples.
Okay, good.
Genuine true story. Had to have part of my left lung taken out. Only a little bit, but take a little bit out and then staple it up. Anyway, Craig continues saying, unless it's something fundamentally incorrect on the card, like the wrong HP, wrong artist, etc., that gets corrected in a later run, I wouldn't call it an error. Everything else is just bad quality control and should devalue a card in my eyes. I mean, they are still errors. I mean, any error is bad quality control at some point. Putting the wrong artist on something is bad quality control somewhere. It's someone's job to check that. Same with there's been multiple Charizards over the years that have had the fighting symbol instead of a fire symbol. Someone is supposed to be doing quality control on that after the design's set up. But as we say, whatever people want to collect, that's fine. I think Craig is basically in the same place we are for what things we want to collect. Oh, before we move on to the next comment, that reminds me of something. You sent me a message about this week, David. 2 new tins have come out, one with a Koraidon EX and one with a Miraidon EX. It was revealed recently that the Miraidon, is that the right one? Which one's the fighting one? Koraidon. Hang on, I've got one here. Koraidon. Sorry. The Koraidon has the wrong illustrator name on the card. We only know this because Pokemon actually put out a statement saying that they had credited the artist as 5-band graphics, and it wasn't. It was someone else. I don't remember who off the top of my head. I'll put the name up on screen. Sorry, you messaged me about it and was like, Dan, what's this? Do I need to make sure I get this? As of now, every copy printed has the error. So this is something that I'm going to keep an eye on in future. If they do, a later printing of the tins, they may correct the artist name then, or if the same promo comes out in a different product, as sometimes they do, that's something we need to keep an eye on. But I'm sure people may have heard of it. Like, it's got mentioned in a few places, so just clarifying for people what exactly that is, and if anything changes, we will let you know in the future if there becomes a corrected version.
And Dan, that reminds me of our discussion of the Wooper error. That from Paldian Evolved?
That one was, yeah, that's from Paldian Evolved.
Okay, so any more updates from anything you've seen as far as more availability of that? We wondered if it was just a couple of people that had all of them, or is it becoming more widely available? Any idea on that at all at this point?
From what I can see, it seems to just be the same couple of people have basically all of them. It seems to have been it must have just happened for a short time period, so it's gone into cases together. So the people who are opening cases that have got the error in that whole case, every copy of the Wooper has the error, but it's confined to a section of the print run. It's not like if I'm opening a case, I'm going to get one error in amongst all my corrected ones. It seems like it's confined to either you get all errors or you get all corrected, and the error is obviously a lot rarer than the correcteds because of just how many I've seen versus how many have actually been opened, it looks like.
Okay. Are they for sale out there from what you've seen? Are those folks selling some of them?
I think people are saying they want to sell them, but I think that the couple of people who've got them, I've seen posting more looking for information on them. So I think they may be just letting things settle to work out how many of them there are, like how many people have them. If as soon as I see them offering them for sale, I'll go ahead and buy 3 or something. But
okay.
There's actually it's weird as well. Sorry,
go ahead.
It's because it's a stamp over the collector number. It's an ink stain over the collector number. It seems some people have ones where the stamp is covering the 129, and some people have it where the 1 is visible and the ink blot covers 2.9 and the slash. So, but it's exactly the same ink error, just very slightly offset on some of them. But I'm going to keep an eye on it, and we'll see what happens. It basically, the more and more I see of it, the less I actually want it. The more it seems like something where it would be one that I would keep for myself if I opened it. But
Well,
I
and it would
will,
seem like it just depends on how available it is, right? If it's going to be
yeah,
something that's just overcharged a ton, then maybe you don't, and maybe we don't. But if it becomes out that it's reasonable, then maybe that's a different story. So
yeah. There's loads of those little errors out there where the stuff where I'd go, oh, if that was a lot cheaper, I'd maybe want it. The stuff where you have to balance how much you want it versus how much people are selling it for. I think the perfect example is the slash error Krabby from Fossil. It's got the Fossil logo has just a bit missing. It looks like someone's just wiped away a thin strip through the middle of the Fossil logo. And when I look at that, it's like, oh yeah, that's kind of cool, but they change hands for like $200, $300. And it's like, yeah, to me, that's not $200, $300 cool. But it's very much not for me. Anyway,
so let
sorry.
me interject one more thing here,
Yeah.
because you triggered a thought for me when you said that maybe this Wooper error is a kind of a stuck inside. I don't know the language I'm looking for, because Dan, I don't sleep much at night anymore due to constant need to go to the bathroom. And when you get 60, Dan, you'll understand that. So basically, what I'm saying is it confined to certain print runs or just groups of the print, and then the rest of it is all fine, whatever. I'm going to ramble. So Dan, let me tell you what happened this week. Can I just tell you something?
Sure.
Thanks for listening, Dan.
Yeah.
Dan, the gentleman who provided me with the opportunity to buy. This is in a previous podcast, folks. If you want to watch, go back and watch. It's fun. There's good, fun stuff out there. He gave me a chance to buy what Dan Norton, DJ Gigabyte, has called some of the rarest things available, which are the sealed packs of inverted what is it, WB stamps, Dan? What should I refer to? Tell me what I'm talking about, Dan.
I think if you just call them the first movie promos, people know what you're talking about. It's Electabuzz, Mewtwo, Pikachu, and Dragonite from the first movie would normally have the golden Warner Brothers and first movie logo in the top right. These ones have them upside down in the bottom left. So the sheets just went into the stamping machine upside down.
Yeah, and so there's been debate for a long time over how many of those there were. I think there's a few more than people claim there are, but it doesn't matter. There's still few and far between. Good condition ones are few and far between as well, and it's one of the few things I just never chose to collect. So
Yeah.
then several weeks ago, a month or two ago, somebody was, I was notified of someone who'd actually come across sealed copies of these things, which is so unusual because typically people just open them.
Yeah.
And so even if you find the ones that are upside down, the inverted stamps, there's usually open ones. Well, the
And
story behind this individual was he's in Boston, and his dad used to be the general manager of a movie theater back in the day. And
yeah.
when these movies came out, he was able to secure a bunch of packs that ultimately were never sold. A lot of them were given away, obviously, and to people that came into the theater. But then, and some of the family, friends, and people that were interested. But then a lot of them were just ended up being held on to. And so, knowing this, and what happened was the gentleman had opened a single card as a child and put it away, and it was an inverted Pikachu. So knowing that he had an inverted Pikachu and realizing that this was a thing, he kind of figured out a system to slide around those cards without opening the packs and see if he could find any more. And
Yeah.
that's what
Worth
I ended up buying. Go
just
ahead.
to explain to people what you mean when you say
Yes.
sliding around. The cards have like an insert in front of the card. The idea behind that was, I think, so that you wouldn't know which of the four you were getting. It's the insert is about the same size as the regular card, but because the packaging has loose plastic at the top and bottom, you can slide the card one way and slide the insert the other way. Again, there'll be pictures on screen for the people who are watching the video where you can kind of see where the stamp is just peeking out. And if you want to hear the full, like, way more detail of the story, it's episode 2 of the podcast. David goes into a lot more detail on that one, and we talk a lot more about it.
Yeah, so thanks for the clarification, Dan. So anyways, long story short, I bought these cards because I'd never had these cards for my collection. So I reached out, I was interested and said maybe I'll go ahead and finally put them in. I'm fortunate enough to have not only the regular stamped ones, but the no stamp on the cards, which of course are the most rare.
Yeah.
The inverteds were the one set I didn't have. Bought these cards from the gentleman. He went home back with his girlfriend to Boston and told his dad about the whole situation. His dad goes down in the basement and finds he's got another 100 packs or so. And his dad, being all excited, starts to do the same thing with those packs. And lo and behold, they find another 7 or 8 sealed packs in that group of packs that are of the inverted stamps still sealed. So he was kind enough to fly out this week, and I bought those packs as well, and really excited. I'll end up offering those out to someone who's interested in time, because I think it's a really neat and rare find. But I was excited, and it was indicative of how batches can sometimes, you get fortunate with a batch that you received and you get those special cards. So yeah, it just reminded me of that when you were talking about the Wooper errors kind of being batch oriented.
Yeah, with those inverted stamp ones, it's if there's not a possibility for one card on the sheet to have the inverted stamp. If the sheet goes in upside down, all of them are getting inverted stamps. So then when that sheet gets cut, basically all of them are going to go into the same box or across the same couple of boxes to go to different cinemas. All right, let's continue on with comments. Next one is, well, it says it's from Meta Podcast, but they put in the comments it's from Too Slow Bro. Dan's hair looks as good as normal, which is the phrase you said people could use if they couldn't think of a comment. He says, I love listening to the card chats and banter always. Fan of Dan since your pre-release Raichu video. That was a long time ago. And David since his YouTube debut. Happy belated Father's Day. I'm glad you've been watching for a long time. That pre-release Raichu video, I think, was like 2013 or something. That was a 10-year-old video at this point. But it is still the most viewed video on my channel and still gets about like 1 or 2 views a day. Like, I think I actually looked at it for 2022, and I think there was only 3 days where it got no views. Like, it's not getting mad views a day, but people are still clicking on it. Anyway, 1 or 2 people. Your average player, Sivert Smedzrud, apparently is their name they put in the comments. Sorry, I've probably completely butchered that. So Dan's hair looks as good as normal. What's your opinion on... Oh, they've put the CHC change. I'm assuming they mean the CGC change, the grading company. David, have you heard anything about this at all? I know you don't touch grading much, but it has been causing some waves. I don't know if you've heard anything about it.
Yeah, I actually have, and I'm gonna let you talk about it real quick because that'll give me a chance to go onto my phone. But it was so interesting. I'm gonna do a specific shout out to a gentleman who saw that I had put I don't grade, of course, but I had recently bought this Topps collection, and in it was a very high dollar CGC 9.5 of something. I don't know which character. And so on eBay, he reached out and said, you know what? If you would send that into CGC, and of course, I don't know if you have to be an original owner or not with this whole situation, they would regrade that as a 10, and you'd potentially have a lot more money available to you when you ultimately sell it. So Dan, talk about it real quick and what it means, and then I'll look up this gentleman's name or at least user ID because I promised I'd shout him out. I was so excited for someone to be that kind to point that out to me.
Hey everyone, it is Editing Dan here, Dan from the future. After recording, David realized he never actually said the name of that person who helped him out, so asked me to say it. It is late in the game with underscores between each word. So shout out and thanks to that eBay user. Yeah, so up until now, CGC have never touched sports cards. They've done trading card games, they've done other sort of trading cards, like Topps, that kind of thing, but they've stayed away from sports cards. They're now either merging with another company, merging with another department, something like that, to also do sports cards, and they're redesigning their cases and the grading system and stuff like that in order to have this one overall grade that matches between trading cards and sports cards. The biggest things in terms of the actual grading, they're getting rid of the subgrades that they did. They used to put... You would have the option of having your 4 subgrades listed on the label. It's I think centering, edges, surface, and corners. It would cost you a few dollars extra to have that put on. If your card was a perfect 10, if it got 10 in all 4 subgrades, if you hadn't chosen to have the subgrades put on, they would put that on free of charge, because a 10 without 4 perfect subgrades was a pristine, and then a 10 with 4 10s in subgrades was a perfect. So if you were getting a perfect, they'd give you the subgrades for free, basically. But they're getting rid of those. And then the way they're combining the system is they're getting rid of 9.5 completely. 9.5 and pristine 10s are going to merge into a 10. And then the perfect 10s are going to be a 10 with some other color label, like Beckett does black labels on the perfect 10s, because Beckett do obviously also print the subgrades on the label. So CGC are going to grade still. It seems like with those 4 subgrades, you just don't have an option of having them printed anywhere. And for getting your cards changed from the old holders to the new holders, you can submit them back in. It's $5 per card to have them changed over. They don't re-look at them to regrade them. They just change it over to the new grading system. So that's the technical stuff of what's going on. I think it really, really sucks for a lot of people. So I think obviously overall, people have been looking at how the new slabs look. People have been saying, they look a lot nicer. A lot of people weren't fans of the blue labels, stuff like that. I'll say, for full disclosure, I own one CGC card. It was one I won in a raffle from the card game Cryptic. It's a sample card from the card game Cryptic. I only own the one CGC label. But it seemed like the people who were willing to give CGC a try, when they first came out and said, we're doing this, we know it's a tough market to break into, to become a big name in grading, to compete with PSA, to compete with Beckett. They needed people to be willing to put their money behind them and put their faith in them. And people have done that. And now it genuinely just seems like those people are completely getting screwed over. Because it's like, yeah, sure, there's going to be a few 9.5s that they can convert to 10s, and the values of those are going to go up. But if there's someone who has, they're sitting on a load of 7s and 8s, whatever, crossing them to the new slab isn't going to raise the price, I can't imagine, but they're going to have to shell out $5 per card to change them over. And because this is how they're going forward now, anyone new getting into collecting the slabs from them is going to want those new slabs, because there's no more of the blue ones going to be produced. So no one's going to want to start collecting slabs that can't match with the new stuff that they're getting graded. So it really seems like it's just an amount of people, a group of people have helped build CGC up. These people who've put their money behind them, and then CGC have just gone, great, thanks. Now you have to pay us a load more money if you want to keep up. We're changing to hit this bigger market, screwing over the smaller group that we had at the start. That's how it seems to me. If you want to share any of your opinions on it, David.
Well, of course, I don't have any opinions on anything, Dan, so there's really nothing to share, but thank you for the opportunity to share. Dan, how does that match with anything else? So here's the question. You're talking about this idea of consistency in the labeling and people wanting to have consistency, and now they're going to have blue labels, but they're going to wish they had the newer labels and stuff. But how does that compare to PSA or Beckett if we look at their situations? I mean, so PSA, even though I think things look similar from what I've seen, I'm not a grading guy, but certainly there probably was some slabs that didn't have QR codes. Maybe they have them now. Like, hasn't those other companies developed and changed over time, and yet people still continued on and just didn't necessarily send something back in to be reslabbed? By the way, no, I'm not trying to justify what CGC is doing. I'm just asking a general question.
Well, so PSA and Beckett, they have changed the label a few times, but even if you look at the oldest PSA labels, they do look similar. The same basics are there. It's the white label with the red border. It says PSA. I think the font changed very slightly, but overall, it is a similar look. Like, you can line them up next to each other throughout the years and go, okay, at a glance, I can tell these are from the same company, even if the labels look a little bit different. If you put one of the CGC blue ones next to these new black and white ones with the gold border or whatever, it looks like it's 100% a different company. It looks completely unaffiliated with it, and that's the big difference, I think, is that it's not just a minor change; it's a complete overhaul that makes it look not even related to it.
I see. Okay. And Dan, I guess I just have one more question. For people that may have single cards, I mean, I know a lot of people that are watching are grading experts, and so my question is of zero relevance to them. But let's talk about me. Why not? I'm on the darn podcast. We should talk about
Yeah.
my specific situation. What do I do with a CGC 9.5 that I have that's, worth several $1,000s? Um, how do I get it to CGC safely? What do I need to do? Do you have any idea of that information of how you would advise me to most safely get that as some kind of submission? Do I go through a middleman? Do I go through straight there? What do I do?
So your best bet is probably a middleman. I mean, there are people who do the submissions all the time, and I believe sometimes they will either have someone who is local to you. You can meet up with someone somewhere to drop it off in person, or they sometimes have people who go to Pokemon events who will pick up the cards for you. That's probably the easiest way, but you have to obviously check the middleman company properly to make sure that they have the insurance of the card at full value going there as well as coming back. A middleman is probably the best way to do it, but obviously there are costs and stuff involved in it. It's not just the $5 regrade fee. There's going to be a lot of costs in it.
Cost specific for using the middleman.
Yes, because I mean, even if you did it yourself, there would be costs involved in shipping and insuring it while it was in transit. Using the middleman, you'd basically just be paying them a flat fee to say, I'm using your insurance that you have as a company for when it's being transported. But yeah, there would be those costs associated with it too.
Okay.
But I would say a middleman is probably the best way. It saves you time on the paperwork and stuff to make sure there's no errors in that.
Okay. Anybody watching, always glad to hear comments on this kind of stuff, very much so. So, and even with, I guess I'll throw something else in now as well. I have a lot of cards. We've talked about the Topps Chrome cards that I was able to acquire recently. Talked about potentially, grading with tag and the new company, but let's say there was no tag. Just from, all of you and your expertise, are you using middlemen? Are you not using middlemen? Which middlemen are you using? Why do you use one over another? Any comments like that that you can supply? Because if it indicates you watch these videos and like to give a few points of advice, always glad to hear that as well.
Yeah. All right, let's get on with the last few comments because I'm looking at that clock going up. Pika Drew says, the Bloods and Crimps comment nearly made me do a spit take. Well done, David. I don't know if you remember saying that. It was in the middle of your rant.
I do, actually.
You
yes.
do? Okay. Alex Begiris says, Dan's hair looks as good as normal, and happy Father's Day, gents. Catch 'em All Collectibles says, just commenting algorithm fuel, but not wanting the giveaway. I have plenty to re-roll it or give it to a local random kid if I win. It's very nice of you, Dan. But obviously, as we said last week, the giveaway entry is commenting and then sending the number to David on his Instagram. I think last week it was 65 or whatever. So if you aren't actually wanting to enter the giveaway, you just need to comment and then not send David the number. There is now a ridiculous username with a just random gibberish that someone hasn't changed their default username. And guess what? It's Laura again. Saying, thanks
oh
for
my goodness. Why?
Yeah.
I can't. I wondered, but why did I even bother to wonder? I mean, clearly there was an empty hole I should have figured out that was waiting to be filled. So, okay.
Yeah. Laura said, thanks for the shout out, guys. Dan, will you buy me the extra Fossil 2000 set David mentioned having? It would go really well with my base 2000 set. I'm sure it would, and I don't know where you think I'm getting that money from. I'd like to thank YouTube, by the way, who is giving me the auto reply options of deal, you bet, or you're in, which none of those are what I'm saying to that from Laura. I'm not buying her a Fossil 2000 set. I don't have the money to buy her a Fossil 2000 set. Anyway, next comment, Gerald Rowland says, awesome podcast. We then have TCG Cross Collector, who's asked a couple of questions. He says, thanks for the value you're giving to the community. I listen to all of your podcasts. Going to start commenting. Questions related to today's content. was base 2000 printed in every language that the other print runs were. So, big topic last week was about those final print runs of base and fossil that changed the copyright dates from just 99 to 1999 to 2000. So, with base set, I believe of all of the languages printed, Spanish was actually the only one that had 99 and 99 to 2000. The rest of them, obviously not including English or Japanese, just had the 99 to 2000. They didn't have a 99 run at all. So Spanish is the only one that actually has two different copyright dates you can find, and then the rest of them just have that base 2000 version. Second question was, what's the estimated print run in percentage for Shadowless in first edition regarding base set? People tend to say 10% is a good estimation for first normally, but you said there were 8 print runs, so if it was the same, that would be 12.5% each, but first is only part of one print run. Any thoughts? Basically, we can never know that, because even though there were 8 print runs, we don't know how big the print runs were in comparison to each other. You know, they would be printing, they would almost certainly be adjusting the size of the print runs to cope with what demand they had. You know, the first print run, which was the Shadowless one, where some of it got stamped with first edition, that would have been based on, you know, their best guess of how many people wanted it, how much they thought they were going to sell in the first couple of weeks, whatever. And then when they see how much they are selling, the print run the amounts in each print run go up or down. So it's very hard to say. Anyone who tells you they have a good idea of how much is first edition or how much sellers, it is just waffling. Like, no one knows for sure, is all I can say on that. All right, so next comment. Pokemon Matt says, interesting thought point. Maybe David is a bot. Can we check? Jump into your pool to check. Don't do that now. I've always felt like base 2000 was a lot rarer, but I see your point, Dan, about folks in the UK just not knowing what they have. When I first started collecting, I'd buy job lots from frustrated parents and did find a few amongst the cards, but not a lot. Funnily enough, I bought the non-holos from David, a UK print, with him being in the UK and you being in America. You sold him the cards that were mainly sold in the UK in the first place. He says it was still not easy to get the holos too, even with he was going through, you know, eBay listings, just looking at all the pictures to see if anything was listed incorrectly. He also says, more rants, please, David. There may be one today. We'll see what the time's looking like when we get to that section.
I almost want to rant about the previous comment, but I just wanted everyone to realize what happened there for just a moment. I was literally stunned. When someone's going to sit there and is going to try to use that complicated math, oh, it's like, but there's 8 print runs and it should be 12.5%, but Dan said 10, and I think there's 6, and 72% of the people that are commenting need to understand that it wasn't even issued in the UK and part of it's in Spanish. You know, guys, I only have a certain attention span. And that's when you'll see Dan so, you know, genuinely take over. He'll play the complicated math card, and I'll just sit here acting like I'm interested until eventually he wakes me up with another shout out to me for some other question I need to answer.
Yeah.
Okay? That's what I wanted to. I just want to make sure everybody understands what's going on at this end of the bot land. Thanks, Maddie.
All right, last few comments. We have Pokinia says,
There's more.
Time. There's a few more, just a couple more. Pokinia says, first time tuning in, great job, gents. Steve Jackson says, love Dave's humor. We need daily Dave talk. As someone who gets almost daily messages from David, no, you don't. You don't want that. Mertz Collectibles says, David is hilarious. And Pokey Power-Ups says, keep these coming. We're done. We're done with the comments. We're nearly an hour into recording. But it wasn't just reading comments. We had some interesting discussions and rants and stuff in there.
But persistence is a thing, Dan, and we got through it. So I want to congratulate you. Honestly, congratulations, Dan.
We did it. All right. So we've had the comments. So we talked about the giveaway. David, do you want to announce your first giveaway winner and then maybe tell people how to enter your giveaway for next week?
Yeah. So Dan, I'm going to have you announce the winner because I just don't want to misspell his name. I think it was Alex Bajeris. Was that the name that I selected?
Alex Bajeris. That was who you said. Yep.
Yeah. So originally, guys, I named myself the winner because I was happy with the podcast. I commented on it, and I also sent myself the number. But Dan said and reminded me that families and their their people and their families are not eligible. Families, there's a saying, guys, you know what it is. Families and their immediate families are not eligible or whatever to participate. So I had to disqualify myself. What I did was I listed all of your names on a spreadsheet, then applied a random number generator. And lo and behold, Alex Bajeris won. Alex, I will send you out a gift. It's going to take a while because what I need to do is go through most of my cards to find the lowest valued thing I can find. And, so it always takes me, I have to sort of make a spreadsheet of what's higher and lower valued. And when I find the very lowest valued thing I can find in the collection, I will then place that. I will contact you, get your address, and then place that in an envelope and send it to you. After that, we're going to continue on this gift sort of thing, this raffle. It's a day when I think I was heavily drunk last night. I'm not sure. Yeah, just one second. I need to wake myself up. It's not a raffle. It's not a raffle. Don't say that word. Just a minute.
Don't say that word. I'm not dealing with YouTube thinking we're running raffles here.
It's not. It's a giveaway. It's a giveaway. So please, this week, the number, what you have to do is you have to watch, you have to comment, and then you send me the number. And all of you guys that are doing that, I'm getting your names and addresses, and I'm making new friends. I love every minute of it. So the number this week is 133. Why, David? Why is it 133? Because I think that's the number of Eevee in this Topps deal that I'm doing or something. In the 151 that I'm, so, what is that, Eevee?
Yep, 133 is Eevee.
133, that's the number. So send that to us. Send that to me. Jump into my DMs. We'll cuddle there. And then, and I promise that this week, whoever wins, I will absolutely send you a more expensive gift of some kind than I'm going to send Alex Bajeris. Okay? So just know that.
All right. So just in case you didn't get the gist out of whatever that was, Dave was rambling. To enter the giveaway, you have to leave a comment on the video, and you have to go to David's Instagram, which is dperson1. He didn't even say that. And you have to send him a personal message with the number 133 this week. Don't put 133 in the YouTube comments. It will spoil it. And don't send that number to me because I'm not going to do anything with it. And Alex, if you haven't heard from David in like a week, send him another message and remind him that you won.
Yes.
And
yes, that's...
This is going to lead us on to a little comment I need to make about next week's video. So normally, I say normally, we've done this giveaway once. I was saying get the comments in by Sunday morning because we record about midday Sunday. This week, coming up is NAIC, the North American International Championships, Intercontinentals, whatever they call them now, in Columbus, which is where I live. So I'm going to be at that all of next weekend. We talked about recording another filler episode, like we recorded the history of David. We did that one when we weren't going to be able to record for a week, but we decided because it's NAIC, we wanted to be able to talk about that and talk about cards and stuff that came from it as soon as possible. So what we're going to do is we're going to bump the podcast by a day. So we're going to record on Monday next week and publish on Wednesday next week. So for this week only, you have one extra day to get those comments and messages in. If you get the comment in by Monday, then you could still be into the giveaway.
An extra day always works well for me, Dan. I think everyone understands that I can't always be at the top of my game. The only reason I get out of bed on Sundays at this point, Dan, is because of your podcast, my podcast, our podcast. It's your podcast, Dan. I'm just an unwilling participant. So on a day like today, guys, when I'm just a little bit slow, give me that. Don't take that from me. Give me that. Okay? Not everyone's perfect like you, Lamar. God.
Well, it means next Sunday you can just sleep all day, and then
for real, Dan.
Yeah, and then next Monday you'll have an even busier day because you'll be doing your normal Monday stuff and then fitting in a podcast filming.
But Dan, why would I sleep next Sunday? I thought we're doing I thought we always do our podcast on Sunday.
Yeah, that's genuinely how David listens to me.
Never mind, Dan. I actually heard what you just said. I just wanted you to wonder if I was listening at all. Okay. Yeah. I understand you're going to some NAIC thing and you're going to be making out with Laura there and you're going to have a good time and take pictures. Have fun, buddy. Jiminy crickets. It's impossible. Sure. I actually do listen.
You do. All right. Well, we're finally past everything comment related. So tell them what time
does that make it, Dan?
Tell the people what time it is.
All right. It's time for Trainer Deck A or Trainer Deck B, where I ask Daniel Norton a series of questions and he must select an option, one of the two options. Maybe there's more than two options. I'm not even sure. Based on those responses, I may or may not say something back. Usually I won't say anything. I think it's revealing enough about Dan and his character on how he answers. But Dan has a full 10 seconds to explain his answers, should he choose to. Should Dan choose not to answer or to wait, take longer than 10 seconds to give me his answers, a Pokemon judge will step in and he'll typically be automatically disqualified from the game either today or forever. That's been yet to be determined. All right, Dan?
Oh,
You understand and are
I
clear on the
didn't.
rules?
I never knew there was an option to get myself disqualified from this for forever, because I definitely would have taken it, so we don't have to do this every week.
All right, Dan. Well, then you go ahead and work on that, okay?
All
It's
right,
a free country. I want you to have free reign on what it is you're trying to accomplish. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, here we go. Trainer deck A or trainer deck B. Dan, 81 or 169?
81.
Jack Reacher or John Wick?
John Wick. I've never seen or read anything to do with those two characters, but I sort of know who they are.
That's really sad, Dan. It's a masculine thing, buddy. Pump up some of the testosterone and take a look at some John Wick movies. Dan, John Wick, 1, 2, 3, or 4?
Let's go with 1 then, because again, haven't seen any of them.
All right, Dan, you made me watch Memento. Least you could do is watch a John Wick. Not a lot of dialogue, a lot of blood and gore. Pick up one when you get a chance, okay?
I'll watch a John Wick.
Fair enough. Dan, grasshopper or praying mantis?
Praying mantis. I just think they look cooler.
Sometimes I'll pause just a second to see if you'd like to explain your answer. You don't need to. It's not part of the thing. In that case, there was no answer explained that I could hear.
Yeah, but
Dan,
when there's silence, I have to edit it out.
Okay, that's fine. Don't edit out the silence. It's part of the bit. Okay. Dan, EX or GX?
EX.
Well, I'm surprised about that one, even though I don't know what either one is.
No.
Dan, flat feet or normal arches?
Normal arches would be nice, because I have the opposite of flat feet. Everything where my feet arch too much.
Dan, that's definitely too much information. That's TMI.
It is.
Dan, cotton candy or snow cones?
Cotton candy, or candy floss, as we would call it in the UK.
Yeah, you Brits got to put a different spin on everything. What do you guys call do you guys call funnel cakes funnel cakes?
I don't really know what a funnel cake is, so I don't know what we would.
God, you are missing out on so much. You got to get out of the house once every 6 to 8 months, Dan. I only come out once a year, and I know what one is.
I mean, I might have had one, but not know.
You might have had one. There's nothing better than a funnel cake, Dan. There's nothing. You get it at the county and state fairs. It's it's like a waffle that's not a waffle. It's like a pancake that's not a pancake. It's like a deep fried dough, and then you put like cinnamon sugar or regular powdered sugar on top. Dan, I don't know why I bother with you, okay? Just sit in your house and meditate. Dan, plane, train, or automobile?
Plane. That gets me to more places that I need to go.
Do you know that's the name of a movie, Dan?
Yes. I haven't seen that movie either, but I do know that Planes, Trains, and Automobiles is a movie.
Talk about an insulated past. It's really sad. I feel happy for you, Dan. Dan, paper or plastic?
Paper?
Yeah, at least you're you're taking care of the planet, buddy.
There we go.
Reality or imagination?
Imagination, because reality just is awful. It's so terrible.
All right, let Laura do the reality. You do the imagination.
Yeah.
Dan, eyebrows or eyelashes?
Eyelashes, just because my eyebrows, I hate having to deal with them, and I actually have quite nice eyelashes.
When you get a chance, Dan, you may want to match the eyebrow color with the hair. I think it'd be a look for you. I really do. If you're going to color anyways, color that stuff up.
I'd have to dye the beard as well.
I don't think so, because you want to work your way into this, Dan.
And sometimes
no, you're good. You're good.
Okay.
Dan, blackjack or poker?
Blackjack.
I know you haven't played either. Believe me, it doesn't seem like you've done a damn thing.
I don't gamble.
Damn, American Idol, or I think I just called you damn, by the way. Let me just restate that. Yeah, don't edit that out. Dan, American Idol or The Voice?
The Voice, because I've seen episodes of The Voice, because they have The Voice in England as well. And they had other shows that were similar to American Idol, but obviously not exactly American Idol.
Dan, would you consider if you were a judge on The Voice, would you give us would you consider this podcast to be a 2-chair turn, a 4-chair turn? What would 0 chairs would turn? What would you say, Dan?
Oh, no one's going to turn for this.
No one's going to turn for this.
No one's
Exactly.
going
I'm
to
on
turn
the
for this.
same page with you there. And finally, Dan, would you say online code cards or common alternate code cards?
I'll say common alternate code cards because I have the listing of what we're talking about in this episode in front of me, and I know you need to
Okay.
lead into it.
I have to lead into it. That's exactly right, Dan. I will say one thing, and before I lead you into it, is you know that there's these online code card things I know nothing about, and I think you can get some characters that you put on the online TCG game and all this other stuff. But in the old days, what looks very similar, by the way, I'm old, so I can say in the old days, days of vintage past, there were these insert cards. And in fact, when I was talking about give me those movie promo cards,
Yeah.
and you were talking about the insert cards that were in there, those would be example of the insert cards that I'm going to refer to. And I don't know if there was in the packs I just got from the gentleman, there are actually 2 insert cards in every one of those packs. 2 insert cards with each one of the movie promo cards. But I suppose that some of those there was probably only 1 insert cards. And in case anybody's interested, maybe I'll show in next week episode that the gentleman I bought these cards from told me out of all the cards he went through there, he showed me the difference between the insert cards and how the Mews or the Mewtwo's or the purple ones did not ever have an inverted card inside, and these other yellowish ones were the only ones he ever found them in. But my thing is, I wonder if anybody's collecting these cards because these insert cards are just really cool. And
Yeah.
going through all the years, like I started just to put them together just because the cards are so colorful and cool. And I know they're not regular character cards, but I wonder if anybody's seen those or is collecting those as well. Anything on that before we move on to alternate code cards, Dan?
Well, I have a thing where with the inserts, it was another one of those things where if I opened a sealed card myself to put a card into the binder, I would sleeve up and keep the insert as well. But I definitely haven't gone out my way to buy every insert. I don't think there are many people doing that. If anyone is, I think it's maybe people would buy it if one of their favorite characters appeared on an insert or something. And then the code cards, like the QR scannable codes, I used to save some of those too because when they first started putting those in packs and in different products, they'd have different like artwork on the back, either for the set or for whatever product they were in. And then after about 6 months to a year, I think it was. I mean, still way back in the black and white era, they like standardized it so it was just the same 2 designs that you could get in every pack, no matter what set it actually was. So I stopped caring about them after that.
Okay. Dan, I can't hear a thing you're saying, and it's either because you're not speaking loudly enough or my hearing aid is failing. So, Dan, just speak up. Dan,
all right,
speak
I
up.
I hope you can actually hear me, because if not, it means the microphone's having a problem again.
It's been a low volume situation. I should have mentioned it a lot earlier, but so just when you edit,
great.
increase the volume as you can. Okay.
All right, a low volume situation, right? That would have been good to know 65 minutes ago, if that's actually true.
I know. I'm an idiot, and I'm not going to say I'm not an idiot because not saying that to you much earlier, I always blame myself. So I took full responsibility for the inability to hear when you had your volume turned down to a level of like 1. So for those that are listening, and I know there's not many of you still here, turn up your computer volumes or your phone volumes. Oh, you know what? Better than that, just stick in the headphones. The headphones make it louder.
I'll fix it in editing. I'm sure.
Okay.
I'll do something with it.
Fair enough. You can't fix the whole podcast in editing, Dan, because at this point, when it sucks, it sucks. Dan, you're going to talk right now about a favorite topic of both of ours, which is these alternate code cards inside of actual sets. And I'm going to give a brief introduction and then you can go from there. But I actually have written out some numbers I'd like to allude to later.
Okay.
But this is still something that I think a lot of folks that are collectors are not necessarily aware of. and was just a limited kind of situation amongst a series of sets in the EX era. So Dan, talk about it, and then I'll come back and either myself or Laura will correct you later. Okay?
So for the whole EX era, cards had a 9-digit serial number code on the bottom of the card, a mixture of letters and numbers. They would be, I think, in the lower left on any card. But for some reason, some cards had multiple different codes that you could get. So for starting off with Ruby Sapphire, it would be that all of the reversers would only have one code. It'd be a full set of reversers, you'd be done. Foils and rares would also only have one code. Uncommons would have 2 different codes, and commons would have 3 different codes. And that ran, I think, all the way up to, was it Emerald? No, Fire Red, Leaf Green, I think it ran up to, possibly with the exception of Team Aqua, Team Magma, just from the lists I have here. I think Team Magma, Team Aqua had codes, but I don't think there were variants. And then after Fire Red, Leaf Green, starting with Emerald, they then got rid of the 2 variants for uncommons. So you just had 3 variants on the commons, but the uncommons and the rares were just the 1 variant. And that lasted for another 3 sets, Emerald, Unseen Forces, Delta Species, and then starting with Legend Maker, the codes were there, but there was no variation on any of them. And then that lasted all the way up until Power Keepers at the end of the era. I'm pretty sure that's right, but these codes are an absolute nightmare. So I'm pretty sure the thing about it skipping Magma Aqua is correct, but
I have the details, Dan.
the details. All right, you give me
I have
the details.
the details, and I wanna congratulate you, because I'm gonna say, as far as accuracy, you were pretty much right on. So the codes ran from Ruby Sapphire, the very first of the sets, all the way through to Delta Species. The last 3 sets, Emerald, Unseen Forces, and Delta Species, they had between 62 and 68 variants. So if there's 2 of a card version, I'm counting 1 as a regular part of the set and 1 as a variant. So then you multiply by 30, that would be 30 additional cards you'd need.
Yeah.
And the only thing you didn't mention was after Fire Red, Leaf Green was Team Rocket Returns and Deoxys. They had those unless I've got them in the wrong order for some reason, but I thought I have them in the right order.
I think Team Rocket Returns and Deoxys are before Fire Red, Leaf Green, are they? No, they're not. I have my list in the wrong order. Fire Red, Leaf Green does come before those. So Fire Red, Leaf Green. Okay, yeah, but it goes Fire Red, Leaf Green, then Team Rocket, then Deoxys, and then Emerald. So I have the spreadsheet I downloaded with these codes on. I think I downloaded it probably a few years ago. Has them in the wrong order, but yeah, it's Emerald is when the change happens.
Yeah. So the question is, so a couple interesting things. I did not know. I appreciate you clarifying why there was so many fewer cards that had the additional variant codes. And that's in the 60s with the last 3 sets, Emerald, Unseen Forces, and Delta Species. And all of the other ones from Ruby Sapphire, notwithstanding the Team Aqua, Team Magma that didn't have them, they're all between 88, the smallest number, Hidden Legends, and 108, the largest number of codes, which is in Fire Red, Leaf Green. So talk to me about, my question, Dan, is, do we have any color at all about why they did this, or why they did it and why it went away? And then the second part of it is, for master set collectors that maybe can still get ahead of some of their peers by knowing this information. Another reason why you might want to watch these podcasts, because you can be in the know without subscribing to Dan's Patreon channel. Wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense. I just shooed people away from your Patreon channel. No, we will not reveal any details unless you go to Dan's Patreon channel. So forget everything I just said. But just in case we reveal some details without you going to Dan's Patreon channel, should folks that are looking to make master sets start trying to grab up these looking for these commons and uncommons, because they're only going to get harder to find and in nice condition, because people aren't going to necessarily know about them, and then it's going to be harder and harder to You can't go on eBay and look at every
Yeah.
single code at the bottom and actually see them that well. Dan, answer the question. You can't just let me keep asking. At some point, get in here and answer the question.
Yeah, so I mean, people should be probably trying to pick these up as soon as they can. But the problem is because it's only a variant on commons and uncommons, and like you said, listings are not going to list which one they are. It when you get down to, you only need one of the three different codes, a lot of the sellers aren't going to go sorting through all of their bulk commons, checking the codes for you, because they're commons and uncommons. They're still only a at most probably $1 or $2 per card. So it's really just not worth it to a lot of sellers unless you're buying a huge amount of them. A lot of sellers just aren't going to do it. They're not going to spend the time going and pulling all their inventory out to try and make a $2 sale if it's going to take them half an hour to do it. A lot of it, I think, is just going to be for the way people are going to have to do it is just buying up big lots of commons and uncommons. If someone is selling, bulk of that era, and they say this is commons and uncommons from the EX era, great, jump on that. Try and just buy it as bulk, and then you sort through it yourself. If these are sets you're trying to put together, it's difficult to do just because of the fact that it's not worth it to anyone to spend the time checking the codes and listing them individually when they're selling them.
And Dan, I wouldn't think that it's that common to find listings of commons and uncommons or what we are calling bulk from that era anyways these days, right? I mean, it's certainly not, I don't typically see a lot of bulk from those days in some kind of listing.
Yeah, there's not going to be a ton of listings just of mixed bulk from those eras. And because, I mean, a lot of stores do pick those up and will sort them into different cards and will list on their store, I have 20 Weedles or whatever, but they won't then break it down and say 10 of them have this code, 5 have this code, 5 have this code. If you get to the point as well where you're just missing one or two to finish a code variation from a set, maybe just consider, go to a TCG Player. If you find a store that has 40 copies of the card in stock, maybe just buy the 40 of them and then increase your chances that at least one or two of them are going to have the right code. And then maybe if you get some more of that code, you can sell them off as a set of 3. Maybe some people will pay a bit of an extra couple of dollars premium for having the 3 different versions. But there isn't a great way until it becomes more popular for people to want to do this, and for more people trying to put these sets together. It's just difficult for people to do because the sellers and stuff won't be part of it. They won't be listing them individually.
So Dan, is this anything? David Letterman, most of our viewers probably don't even know who he is, but David Letterman used to do a segment which was called "Is This Anything?" or "Is This Something?" And then he would, do something like, see if something floated, it float in water or whatever. So I don't even know grammar anymore. I used to be a smart guy. My Wordle streak still continues, guys. I haven't missed yet. I'll let you know when I miss. I'll be crying on screen. Dan, is this anything at all? These code cards, these alternate codes, making a master set with these codes? That's question 1. Number 2 is, Dan, do you do it? Have you done it? Are you complete on this? And number 3, Dan, if it is something, if it's not nothing, you don't have to answer number 3, Dan. But if it is something, then should sellers be charging more? Is it okay for me to charge more to go through my bulk and try to help people specifically find their code cards? Or is that just me being greedy and I have no right to do that? Dan, a lot of questions there. Start to answer the questions, Dan.
Well, first, I definitely think it's something. Like, it's something that I think a lot of people have known about it for a while. There's just fewer people who actually want to go through the time of putting the set together. But it's definitely a thing. I mean, like last week we talked about Base and Fossil 2000. Like that's just a slightly different number printed on the bottom of a card. And as we talked about, those are very, very collectible. So there are definitely people who want to do this. In terms of if I'm doing it, if I get stuff in, I check the codes. The EX era is my least complete era from all of Pokemon, because I collected originally during some Wizards of the Coast stuff. I came back to collecting in Diamond and Pearl, So the EX era was the one era where I was completely out of the game, and even when I came back at the start of Diamond and Pearl, the EX era stuff that I was getting was from those later sets where they'd stopped doing the code variants. I know if I pull out some of Laura's binders now, she's got extra pages at the back where if she gets a different code, she keeps it. We haven't even looked at the idea of going through and trying to sort out all the codes yet. It'll be something we want to do eventually, but it's just going to be when we get to that point when we decide that's the next thing to work on with collecting. I would say, in terms of sorting your bulk out and listing them, if it's something you want to do and have that option open to your buyers, you maybe don't need to charge more, because if you're wanting to do it to all of your bulk, if you wanted to go through and actually separate them out and have all of your listings that way, then it probably would work out quite well for you, because everyone who wants certain codes would be coming to you. When I say it's not worth it for sellers to do it, it's when if someone messaged you, if you weren't going to sort them and someone messaged you and just said, I need one common with a certain code, it's probably not worth it for you to go through and sort out that common and find that code and sell it at the 50 cents or $1 or whatever. But if you wanted to take a bit of time, just sort them all out, list all the codes, then I think long term it would be beneficial to you, because anyone who's wanting to do the codes will come to you. You'd be the one guy doing it.
Okay, interesting. Do you think that I know there's no way to know this, so complete speculation, but you seem to like to do that a lot because of your intensely severe ego. Dan, do you think that a lot of people have master sets with all of these codes? Do you think it's more of an anomaly? Say something good to assuage my ego, Dan, because I do have all of the codes and all of the sets, and I'd like to say that I'm proud of that. Although it's virtually not of my own doing. It was because of, fortunately, buying collections that had a lot of this done back in the day. But Dan, am I one of only a handful, or is there hundreds of people that have all this stuff done?
No, you're one of a handful of people who've done this. I mean, you're the only person I know for definite has done it for all of the sets. I'm assuming there are going to be a couple of people who have it done that I just don't know for definite that they've done it, because I've known people in the past who were working on it, but again, it was low numbers of people even working on it. So even if I assume some of them did see it through at the end and finish it, you are just one of a handful of people who've actually gone through and got all these codes sorted.
Okay. All right, Dan. Thank you. That makes me feel good, and it makes it easier to come on next week with you on whatever podcast that may still exist when you say nice things and make me feel good about myself. Okay.
Yeah. This podcast is called Koffee Talks, by the way. It was your name, and neither of us drink coffee.
Yes, but did I say something? Did I call it the wrong name, or did I just forget?
No,
the name?
you just said you didn't know what this podcast was, which.
Oh no, I've never known. I just
remind the people. This is Koffee Talks, a Pokemon card collecting podcast.
Okay, fine. I just call it some reason to get out of bed on a Sunday morning podcast. So that's do you see the picture behind me, Dan?
Yeah, big old Charizard painting.
Yeah, it's a big old Charizard painting. I thought I'd throw it up there because Fire Red Leaf Green with the most number of those variant code cards at 108 is the reason it just happened to be coincidental that I liked this card way back in the back in the old days, and this is one of the EX cards. Is that right, Dan?
Yeah, that one won't have variants though, because it was
no variants at all. But
yes, that is one of the EX cards from that era. That might be the most expensive EX card, the Charizard. I'm struggling to think of one that would be worth more.
Usually I won't have the most expensive of anything, so it's going to be something else. But Dan, I do want to say, because someone's going to want to know, thank goodness for the curiosity. So I've told this story before, but no one watches my old YouTube videos. So this was a painting. We had identified a lady. And Uncle Dave, what is that behind you? Oh, why is it so big? So we had a lady, and she was a painter, and she would come to our house, and she would paint things on our walls. She was amazing, amazing. And so she actually painted on drywall, and the drywall wasn't necessarily, of course, it's not flat. And she painted on a sound wall outside in our backyard, a whole mural of our family. And we had Curious George, and she would do that, and she would do Venetian or France or Italian, patio scenes. And so I asked her to paint in two sides of the front room this card and one of the World Championship trophy cards that I thought would be the most rare at the time, which was a 2007. Well, the problem was, so all by freehand, all by looking at the picture on drywall, and it comes out like this, just literally amazing. When we decide ultimately to move from that house, and for a while, by the way, my eyes are looking at me in the picture when they should be looking down here at this
Yeah.
white dot. I don't ever look at Dan during the entire broadcast, guys. I just look down at this white dot to act like I'm looking at where I'm supposed to be looking. So sometimes old habits die hard. We left the house, we moved, and I was so sad to leave the cards, and I couldn't bear to leave them behind on the walls. I had a contractor come at great expense to ourselves and to myself and at great risk because he said he didn't know if they would cut them out. And he actually cut the drywall out of the walls so we could take these paintings with us. And I took the paintings very, very heavy and framed them, and that's what you see behind me. So I love these things. Some people have come to our house and said, David, they're pretty unique and one of a kind. And she was just fantastic, and that's what you see behind me. In case you were ever curious, most people aren't curious. Too slow, bro. He's always curious. Your average player, not so much. Lamar could care less. Craig Holmes, different kind of person, curious, and then as soon as he gets curious, he forgets it. So, yeah, I don't want to name everyone in the comments, but I think,
No,
Dan, you know
thank
what I'm
God.
talking about.
Yeah, we spent enough time on the comments so far today.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Do you have anything more Pokemon related to talk about, or do you just want to tell me what you thought of Memento when you actually watched it?
No, I'm not. I'm going to save Memento. It's
Save
important.
Memento.
I'm going to
Okay.
save it. I do
All
want to
right.
say something. Yeah, let's see what I do want to tell you Pokemon related. I've got a couple of things. I want to say that for Father's Day, and I'll try to show it next week. I got two 3D kind of, I don't know what size, maybe 11 by 14 3D-ish kind of cards of
Okay.
Pokemon. One was just some characters that are, kind of go back and forth on the 3D when you tilt the card. But the other is called Thick, THICC Pikachu, and Thick Charizard. And so if you tilt the card, you see either one with some large, extremely large butt cheeks. But it looks like a real card, and they're really cute because I guess this whole notion of thick, which is a thing, certain celebrities have made it popular. So I'm going to show that next time. And then I got a plush of Charmander, which was just something that my daughter and son-in-law found at some store somewhere, but it's really cute. And I should have showed it today, but if you don't get out of bed in time, you can't do that. I consider that somewhat Pokemon related, Dan. So just forgive me for sharing.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I'm going to tell you is that I think it's Steve Jackson. Steven is his name. Is the gentleman Steven Jackson? I said no.
There was a Steve Jackson in the comments. If
Steve
that's
Jackson. Okay. So he shared with me, which is why I love you guys climbing in, jumping in, hopping in, just crawling into my DMs, that he actually bought a number one trophy card from 2015, and it was one of his holy grails. From I don't know if Steve is from Canada, but the winner was from Canada, and so he ended up acquiring this card from 2015. He showed me pictures of it, beautiful card, and paid quite a bit. But what he said was that he took the opportunity when it availed itself. And so I continue to stress this as something that each of you should consider when you see something that feels like you really want it, but it's a little out of your price range. I suggest, maybe advise, but not in my role as a financial advisor in my career, so I don't get fired, that you stretch yourself if you can do it, because you'll feel so good about the purchase down the road if this franchise continues to flourish and prosper and these things are not available anymore. So that extra 5,000 or 2,000 or 3,000, grab it when you can. But I was really excited for him because he was so excited to own that car.
That's cool. That's good to know.
Yeah, very good. All right, I need to rant. Can I rant for I know it's late.
You definitely have you ranted about something earlier, didn't you?
No, I didn't rant about nothing.
Oh God. Okay.
Dan, today's rant. I know you're thinking it's been so long. Dan, I got to rant for just a second.
Yeah. Okay.
It's called a weekly rant. Pop them out sometimes. And today's probably going to be pretty bad because I'm tired as heck. But Dan,
Yeah.
today I'd like to rant about jealousy.
Okay.
Jealousy and what it does to the hobby. All right? Yeah, you sit and relax, Dan. Thank you. That's important. That's all I expect anybody to be doing at this point. So today I'm going to talk about jealousy. All right? And when I talk about jealousy, I'm not going to sit here and define the term for you guys, but I think we all know what we're talking about. Are you out on Facebook? Are you watching your siblings and your peers and your competitors and what they're doing with their collections. Are you viewing them and thinking to yourself, that should be me? Why isn't that me? Why hasn't that been me? And why do they have that thing that I don't have? And I think when you're looking at that, you need to take a minute to reflect on the perspective you bring in the situation. Is there something traumatic from your childhood? Is it something that happened with your parents? Was there a situation in life where you were offered a opportunity, but you didn't jump on it and you thought for a minute, why not? And has it affected your life in a negative sense ever since? And from the standpoint of jealousy, what is it? Is it envy? Is it that whole, that whole saying green with envy? Do you actually take time to reflect on, well, if I'm a TikToker and I'm watching TikTok and I'm watching these other people, do I wish I were thinner? I was more attractive. Do I wish I were someone who had more views, who didn't have as many views? Am I tired of the public eye, or do I want to be more in the background? And that brings up the idea of even like a celebrity, a singer. Do you want to be the singer? Do you want to be the background singer? So the background of your life relative to the background of your collection, relative to the acquisition of the things that you're getting, it's all important. Is it all omni-important? Is it the most important? No. And at the same time, why? Why do you sit there? Why do you view it from that lens? You hear the glass is half empty, the glass is half full. What if the glass doesn't have anything in it? Or what if the glass is overpouring with liquid? So when I talk about jealousy, maybe we look, maybe we shouldn't even look. Maybe we should protect ourselves psychologically by creating a referendum by which we can't even maneuver ourselves to view what it is we're potentially jealous of. And that's basically self-preservation, right? At the end of the day, guys, I guess what I want you to understand is, does jealousy serve a purpose? Does it motivate you for the greater good? Does it defeat you to where you are bipolarly depressed on a daily basis? And whatever your answer is, how will it change your behavior going forward? And that's why I want to thank you this week for listening to my rant on jealousy. Thank you.
Are we done?
Oh, we're done. All right.
An important topic, but just absolute nonsense.
Absolutely what? The volume's not up. Turn the volume up.
Nonsense.
Absolute
nonsense.
Say something every once in a while. Talk louder. People want to hear what you have to say. You're such a good-looking man.
I'm so terrified of how this is going to sound in the edit now. I'm going to have to fix it. I was just thinking that whole thing. I'm really jealous of Mertz, who was someone who in previous weeks said he listens to the podcast on 2 times speed, because I really wish I could have just sped through that.
I love that. Thank you, Mertz. We don't care what speed you listen at. We're just happy you're here with us listening at all.
Yeah. Anyway, the last thing we had the true or false game. I've come up with things about my life now, which means we can tell everyone that the Pokemon card stuff is basically done. I think we've talked about... one of my true or false things is going to mention Pokemon cards a little bit, so I guess you can stick around for that.
No. First, you have to do the Ferris Bueller spiel.
That's what I'm doing.
Oh, you're going to actually end it, and then we're going to do it?
That's what I was leading up to.
Go ahead.
Okay. All right, so we can say that we're done. You can stick around if you want, but if not, you can leave. You can go home. You can, find anything better to do with your life. But hey, thanks for watching, the people who watched this far, and thanks for anyone who watches past this.
Yes, and we're going to go further because Dan needs to be more appreciative. We don't want to just say thanks for watching. We want to say we love you. We appreciate you as part of Dan's fan base. We appreciate those of you that actually think of me as a celebrity. You're foolish as heck. We want to say, don't forget to climb in my DMs with the number 133. Don't put it in the comments or you're automatically disqualified. Just make a comment on the video. Tell a friend, tell a loved one, tell someone you hate, tell a prisoner. Maybe they give it to the whole prison population. I do have friends in prison. It's not a good situation. I'm not happy about it. Sometimes people make bad mistakes, but you still have to keep friendships alive. And so, you know what? From that standpoint, let them know, and maybe we'll grow. Okay, thanks for it. Now get out. We've seen enough of you. Dan, go ahead.
God, the analytics on this episode are going to be horrific, aren't they? I'm just imagining that graph that I have to look at every week. All right, we're doing a true or false game where this time I'm going to give 3 statements about my life or things that I've done, and David is going to guess if they really happened or if they're fake. David gave the statements the last 2 episodes in a row, and I lost both. So we need to come back. All right. I did say one of them was going to be Pokemon card related. So my first fact is I have actually drafted and played games with Shadowless base set.
Dan, before I can answer the question, I don't even know what the HEC you just said. You have drafted and played games? What does that even mean? Can you speak in old person lingo?
You don't know what you're really into sports. How do you not know what a draft is?
Oh, so you're talking about a sports draft. You have drafted. No, I still don't know what the hell you're saying.
So in a normal draft where you just have 8 people sitting around a table, everyone opens a pack at once. You pick a card out, you put it down, you pass the rest of the pack. The packs go round. What we did with Shadowless base set is we started out with a theme deck, and then instead of doing everyone opens a pack and it's secret, we did what's called a Rochester draft, where it's one person opens a pack and they all go face up on the table, but you go round the table and you pick one card at a time. It takes a bit longer, but because it was Shadowless base set, we wanted everyone to see the cards. And then we made decks with them. We took the theme decks, took some cards out, put the cards in that we drafted from the packs, and played some games with them.
All right, Dan. So I'm going to say a couple of things at this point. Number one, I'm going to say your true or false have got to be more exciting than this. All right. I'm going to answer the question. I'm going to give it my best yeoman's effort. But Dan, I need to know that they've got to be more along the lines of the West Virginia up in the hitting the deer and driving 400 miles, wondering if you're going to actually make it out alive. All right. But Dan, I don't have any idea what this is about. None.
All right.
And since I should have been the one laying with my head back sleeping right now, I've elected to use my random number generator, which selected Alex Bajeris moments ago for the gift, to answer this question. Give me a moment.
All right.
I'm going to generate it. One means true. I've got the number 1. Dan, I'm going to go with true, that is a true story on this situation.
Okay, that is true, and I bet people listening will find that kind of exciting, the drafting and actually playing with Shadowless base set cards.
I know I want them to. I totally want them to, but tell me why. It's about as exciting as deciding if I want mustard on my hot dog. So what are we saying? Tell your fan base why is this so exciting?
It was playing games with Shadowless base set. It was the original Pokemon printing.
Oh, so you mean back in the day? You mean actually back in 99, 2000? Or
no,
you mean after?
We did this at Worlds 2010 in Hawaii.
All right, Dan, that makes it even worse. I'd like to know you were doing this before it was known to be something you should be doing, okay? All right, Dan, you know what? I don't know anything about the card game. Okay, now, everyone listening at this point, which is about 4 people because we're to the Ferris Bueller's Day Off part, you need to comment. I don't care what it is. You tell me if this is exciting or not. Is Dan's story exciting or not about playing games with Shadowless base set? Please. If you don't weigh in, and I don't see you weigh in, you will next week perpetually be banned from the broadcast. I know who it is that's watching, and I know if you don't comment, I will find you and I will ban you. We'll take you right off.
That's fine. I do have faith that people will find a Shadowless base set draft at Worlds 2010 an interesting story. Anyway, okay, all right, you're 1-0 up again. All right, my second fact. When we go to Japan for Worlds, which we're doing in August, that will mean I have visited every continent except Antarctica.
All right. So, Dan, I don't want to admit this because let's say there's actually people that need my intellect in their life, that respect me for who they expect me to be, Dan. I don't want them to know how dumb I really am. Okay.
Oh, you don't know what the continents are, do you?
I have no idea what the continents are, but don't worry about that, Dan, because I'm still going to get you an answer. I did watch Dumb and Dumber this week. Do you want me to
tell you the continents?
Dan, you know what? You probably should because there's got to be. at least one of our viewers who has you know no idea like me that what the
All right.
continents are. So even though there's not, Dan, tell me the continents, please.
The 7 continents. It's North America, South America, Europe, Africa, Asia, Oceania, and Antarctica.
And Dan, they all sound familiar, but without knowing what's in
Good.
them, it's really not like Oceania. I mean, we've heard that so many times. It's on some of the cards, but I mean, I don't know. Is that like Australia, Dan? Is it something over there?
Oceania is like Australia, New Zealand, and I think some of potentially Philippines and stuff. That kind of area maybe counts as Oceania, but that might still be Asia. But it's that area down there. Yeah.
All right. Um, Dan, when you say that area down there, I don't think of continents. You know what I'm saying? So I'm gonna
Okay.
just leave that alone. Dan, I'm gonna generate my answer to your question using a random number generator because I don't know the answer and I really have no idea. So I
Okay.
my random number generator, the one that elected a winner earlier, it says that your selection should be false. I'm going to go with false. That you have not visited every one but one.
I mean, really annoyingly, it got it right again. Like, I'm really annoyed that you've won this by just essentially tossing a coin. But yes, I will still never have been to Oceania or South America.
Okay, and are they on a bucket list? Because if I would, the one I'd like to go to is Oceania. That's the one that we always talk about going in that direction.
Yeah,
If I
I mean, we've definitely talked about wanting to go to New Zealand at some point to visit the Lord of the Rings film sets.
oh
So
okay.
it's definitely on the bucket list. If we were going to do a big trip like that, it probably would be try and get Laura on staff at Oceania Regional Internationals in Australia, and then travel to New Zealand after that. That would be the ideal if we were going to that area.
Okay. Well, if you do, make sure we know because maybe Stephanie and I could join the two of you, unless you need your privacy more than that. But I know we'd have to be sitting there with the Pokemon people worried about how much Laura's trying to overcharge on the trip to get us all there on the same flights.
Yeah,
But please keep me posted, okay?
I will definitely let you know if we're going to Australia. It will not be
Okay. And not that
anytime soon.
I don't want to, oh, there they are again trying to, infiltrate our trip. But Dan, you cannot always do everything alone with Laura. You can also share friendships along the way.
I mean, it will not be anytime soon because we have just booked a trip to Japan and we're going back to England in October. So,
Okay. Okay, good.
all right, and then it's not even a tie break because you've already won this one. Third fact is we talked a few weeks ago about the fact that I have brothers. You didn't know I had any brothers. So
No one did, Dan.
I have a brother and I have a second cousin who are almost exactly the same age. They're only a couple of months apart, and they have the same full name.
All right. Well, I'm going to random number generate on purpose, but I know this one. Don't say anything, Dan, but I know this one is true. But I'm going to random generate to just check myself. So just a moment. Oh, my goodness. Well, here you go. Here's the ultimate dilemma. My intuition says true, and the random number generator says false. And only because I've won today, Dan, will I go with the random number generator because I can't lose in this situation.
Yeah.
So I'm going to select false, even though I know it's true. And Dan, would you care to announce what it is?
Yeah, it was true. You were right again.
I know. Okay.
How,
Tell me
how
about
did
it.
how did you definitely know that? Was it just because it would be a ridiculous thing to make up?
Well, no, because I know like family members that have the same situation. Like my family has a lot of Elianas and Alianas, and they're like really close. So sometimes it sort of turns out that way for some unknown reason. I don't know.
Yeah. This was completely unintentional.
Oh wow.
It was just my dad didn't talk to his cousin for a little while, and then so the my second cousin Adam Norton was born like 2 months before my brother Adam Norton, and then it very nearly happened again when my half brother was born, the one who's 8 years younger than me. My dad, luckily this time, spoke to the same cousin a month or two before that cousin had another kid and found out that they had again both picked the same name.
Wow.
Just completely
Yeah.
random. And then that time my dad changed so that there wasn't another pair of brothers and cousins.
You know, it's funny because it's not, that's very common is like my wife is Greek. And so everybody's named, you know, Theodore or George or something. But it's not so, I wouldn't think it's so common when, you know, when it's not as cultural a phenomenon or whatever.
And you could definitely understand it if they were both like named after a grandparent or a great grandparent or something. But no, it was just there was no one else in the family history with that name or anything. They both just happened to pick the same name.
Okay, cool. So Dan, thank you for letting me play though. I really enjoyed it. It's nice for you to put in some preparatory work before the podcast as well. Dan, I don't well, no, you're doing all the technology. I really should say thank you, Dan. It's nice of you to just allow me to share some time with you. So I got nothing else, Dan. I always want to thank everyone for coming along this part of the journey, and I'm having fun. I hope you guys are as well. For anybody that's still dumb enough to be left.
Yeah, if there's anyone still here, I mean, congratulations. I mean, I don't know how you did it.
Yeah,
I'm now just getting to I've now listened to this once, and I know I have to listen to this like 2 more times fully through over the next day, and I'm absolutely dreading it. But
patience of Job, my friend. Patience of Job. I don't know how you do it.
I don't even know what that means. And I'm not getting into it now. We're an hour and 45 in. I'm not getting into what that means now. Anyway, as we said, thank you guys for listening. We, of course, do hugely appreciate it. Don't forget to leave your comments and send messages to David for a chance to win something in a giveaway. And remember, next week podcast is going to be Wednesday. So we are going to talk about NAIC and everything related to that. And we'll see you then.
Bye-bye.
I would like to say a huge thank you to everyone who chooses to support me on Patreon. If you'd like to get involved, help support the channel, and see some behind-the-scenes content, click on the link in the description. Thanks again.
Thanks for watching. Check out some more videos right here.
And don't forget to subscribe for more awesome Pokemon content from DJ Gigabyte.
Gotta catch 'em all!